In a hamlet so desolate was my duty charged to find brave heroes sent to slaughter, and my first was Clementine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you are gone and lost forever, dreadful sorry Clementine. With her stout mace and good book, she joined the battle lines, but she didn't heal the Jester, so the Leper lost his mind. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you left them to die there, you're a monster, Clementine. She came back soaked in blood, yet assured me she was fine. Spent her evenings in the tavern, said the abbey lost its shine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you're a tippler and a user, oh my darling Clementine. All the horrors she had witnessed, still she went back each time. Caught syphilis from a pig there, the stress made her untwine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, just what did you do for pig there, oh my darling Clementine? Finally, the darkest dungeon went the Vestal Clementine, but someone forgot provision, starved in dark my Clementine. Oh my darling, my darling, oh my darling Clementine, someone forgot the torches, you're in dark my Clementine. How I missed her, my darling Clementine. But the stagecoach came another, so I named her not this time. Little X, capital X, little X, 69. Hello everyone and anyone, welcome to Darkest Dungeon. This is the introduction video before the game releases from early access. I played the game for about 100 hours, I believe Steam said. Funny enough, I believe this actual one that I have played, this one that's going on here, was one I did on a road trip where I was in the back of the car and I got to play video games and back there. But what you're here for is people who've already been playing Darkest Dungeon for early access. Has been out for about a year almost. And it is a fantastic game that's gone through a lot of revisions and early access to kind of change some things around. So I'm going to kind of give a little bit of an overview and talk about each one of the classes. And the main reason why I'm doing this is I want people to see how, well, hey, these guys have names. Do you think that his name just turned out to be Slade or Fett, for example? No, that you get to name the characters in this game, and a game that has permadeath will obviously matter, as you can tell from the little opening with the sad tale of Clementine. So, basically, the overview that I would like to go through first is that the gist of the game is the fact that it's basically you have 4 characters who are going to be going into the dungeon. They shall be embarking into mysterious and scary places, varying difficulty levels, and different tasks they have to do. Everything's been opened up, and I've experimented with everything, with the exception of no one's seen the Darkest Dungeon yet, because the game isn't out yet until January 19th. And the Cove is, I probably spent the least amount of time there. In fact, this playthrough never even went to the Cove. I have one that I went through the Cove with. The reason why I have this one open is because I had to wait until I did enough missions to unlock one of the classes to talk about. So without further ado, I'm going to go back and I will go through the classes and kind of tell you what they're about. And there's going to be a table of contents, so hopefully at the right mark in the video, you can skip to right where you need to go to see if that class is for you, and if you want to be named that. So I sorted them all by class. Let's do it this way because I already got it there. Okay, starting off, first we have the Leper. Another thing that Darkest Dungeon does quick introduce, and before I get into it, is the quirk system of what they're good at, positive quirks, and what they're bad at. This actually is before they had the ability to lock in permanent quirks, but these are always things, the stress of adventuring is always going to be causing problems, so some things are going to be negative aspects, such as, he's got very bad speed in the first round. And there's so many phobias in this game that going through them all is absurd. Believe me, I took psychology in college, and there's a lot of them. I'm like, really? Well, I guess someone would have to be afraid of there being too much light. Anyway, but going through the class, Leper. What the Leper is this bad guy right here. Here's his little palette swaps. In terms of how you can have them dressed out. So if you want to reserve your character and kind of have a certain color for him, let me know. But for the Leper, what he specializes in is pretty much his preferred position. It kind of matters what abilities you have for them. But they generally are always going to be in the front lines. Their major ability is Haya. Hit him Haya with the first two. They see the little markings on the right hand side means that actually he's going to hit both the front enemies. This ability here is just something that clears corpses. We'll go into that eventually later. This is kind of what the class is all about, is revenge. Revenge is something that what the Leper lacks from is his accuracy is awful. Meaning, like, this thing has been upgraded a few times, the ability that is, but his accuracy is still kind of crap. It's almost like the Leper, you either need to outfit them with trinkets, as seen in here, good lord, that's a lot of things, my god, in order to help balance out his accuracy costs, but he hits really hard and he's very meaty. For example, he can also heal himself of stress, basically the wear and tear of battle, and increases protection, making him a better frontline tank. They can still attack your back lines, but if your frontline tanks are the ones who are going to be getting hit with the hardest abilities from some of the big monsters for the most part. This is another one that's basically like he has got a self-heal that gives him resist. Move resist is also a pretty big deal because if the Leper gets moved back into these back two lines here, he's kind of screwed. So, and Intimidate is another one that looks like a debuff for basically the enemies. It has actually got a pretty high accuracy, funny enough. But you notice that while this is that's basically doesn't have any sort of damage multiplier, this one here has a damage modifier of you do minus 75% of the damage you're going to do. That's because you're adding a debuff instead. Okay, so that pretty much handles the Leper. When you have camping skills for long missions, you'll have camping. And they kind of specialize in the ability to heal themselves if they're in trouble. They can reduce their stress by helping other people stress. They can actually help out their accuracy because that's their biggest penalty is pretty much accuracy and such. Overall, I'd say the Leper is a class that definitely has its drawbacks, like pretty hardcore drawbacks, but is very stout in the front line and can be very useful with some of their utility. To see what they do. Not all the abilities are unlocked in this particular character, but like the idea to be able to knock back enemies, change around the lines while clearing corpses is not a bad thing. Okay, so moving on to the Crusader. This one's named after my father, funny enough. Anyway, actually, it looks like some of these things are here. I can actually real quick talk about how this is a locked-in trait. I guess I had some of this in here to where at the sanitarium you can take care of these sort of things. But I'm going through the classes right now. But this means this is locked in and won't get replaced. Wow, he's God-fearing. He will only go to the church and that's locked in as a negative trait. Your traits get locked in pretty hardcore. The Crusader, once again, another frontline tanky type that's got the ability to hit pretty hard, especially versus unholy style enemies. This is his main attack, if you will. Then he's got a attack that can basically attack the first two lines, less damage, blah blah blah. He's got a stun, but as you see, he really needs to be in those front lines. He's got himself a protection ability that also marks himself and increases your torch, your light levels in the dungeon. The idea is that you can mark yourself so that way the enemies will, a lot of them have targeted things to whoever is marked, so they might go after you because of that. But you're getting 25% protection. Protection is very, very good. It's just flat defense against everything but dots. Damage over time. The thing that's interesting about the Crusader is that he's got two different types of heals. He's got this one where he can stand at anywhere in the line, and he can actually heal for a crappy amount, but he'll keep your torch up, and he'll also stress heal. Stress heal is just basically taking the stress. Like, let's just check the sanity levels. You can see by stress, yeah, it's like right now Madison's effing insane. So that this level of stress can go down, and there's a way of managing your stress when you're inside of the dungeon. So he's got that heal, plus he just has a plain old battle heal, which isn't the strongest heal, but it's a single target heal. But he has to be in the front lines to do it, but it can be another backup heal to help keep your party going when you're in there. And his last ability is Holding Lance. Holding Lance's main use, if you ask me, is really about, it can hit pretty hard. It's got a high crit as well, but it moves you forward one space. Now, once again, Crusader is, I can't do it, I can't use his abilities, I can't use his abilities. So if he gets knocked back, he literally can only heal with this if he has that ability selected, but you can only have 4 out of the 7 abilities selected. So the Holy Lance is a way for him to get himself right up back to the front lines. So that's kind of the positives to Crusader. Otherwise, his camping abilities, for the most part, helps healing companions. He's got a nice little buff for himself. They all really have a buff for themselves, and they all have the ability to kind of do stuff. They do stuff. He's actually pretty good at dealing with stress for himself and his allies. So Crusader, good class. He's solid. He's one of the original ones you pick up, and he's definitely a good one to have around because he works all around in the first 2 rows. He's got less, let's say, drawbacks than the Leper, because he can actually get himself at least move forward back into the lines if he gets moved out of position. Okay, so moving on to probably one of my favorite classes, the Hellion. Okay, anyway, she got some legendary equipment on there. Anyway, the Hellion is all about basically another kind of can be a frontline tanker, but they're not necessarily really tanky. They just do so much damage. So, going through abilities, we have the ability to basically whack them in the front of the face. This is your standard, I'm going to hit you, you are going to hurt. They have this cool ability, if they're in the very front row, they can hit the very back line enemy, and those tend to be the enemies that are causing you a lot of trouble. And you can hit them from basically the front row and hit the enemy in the very back. Situational, but helpful. Also, they have a wonderful stun. This is the thing about it is that the Hellion has drawbacks as well, because they'll be able to stun the first 2 guys, and it's got a pretty good chance to stun. It's pretty decent. The problem is that her damage goes down by 20, her dodge goes down by 15, so it's a negative debuff. Probably there's ways to counteract that by saying Adrenaline Rush is, hey, look at that, it puts her damage back up, her accuracy up, and also cures Blight Bleed, which is actually really helpful to get the dots off of you, and heals her a little bit. So there's ways to counteract this, because if you're doing some area attacks such as Breakthrough, you see once again there comes that negative debuff that you get with minus 20 damage, minus 15 dodge. There's nothing really to get your dodge back up, but at the very least you can heal yourself up, and you could get your damage back to where it's supposed to be. The bleeds are what make the Hellion interesting. This is the one that's very conditional. It's only if you're in the very front line. Once again, it comes to the debuff, but I think it's probably the strongest bleed in the game, because it's 4 points per round. I don't know about that actually, if it's that. I think it does more damage, but it is a very good little bleed, but once again, you have to deal with the negative debuff that comes with it. But if you're attacking somebody who's in the very front, you'll do a lot of bleeding damage. Now, probably what my favorite ability is if it bleeds. Now, this ability is great because, one, you notice that even if she gets knocked back into, say, the third line, 3rd or 4th row on your party, she can still attack the 2 middle enemies and hit them with her bleeding attack. And it's a good bleed. It's a 4-point bleed. It attacks. It's generalized who it's hitting, but you generally are going to be able to pick on that. If there's 4 enemies in a group, you'll be able to pick on the last 4 or the third or the fourth enemy, which is usually another one of those enemies is giving you pain and somebody you want to take care of first. Okay, so that kind of wraps up the Hellion's offensive capability. She's got herself a nice little buffs for herself. This one I like never use. If you're desperate enough and you want to reduce your stress and heal, that you can do that. Reject the gods. You can get rid of some of that stress. Sharpened spear is awesome. Crit is very powerful in this game. Okay, so moving on. Now this is where I'm going to show my what? I don't know. This is the new class that came out, and frankly, I just got him, haven't used him once in battle. And this is the Abomination. This was actually designed for the Kickstarter bonus goal of someone basically went there and designed the class with him. He's got a little anarchy sign in his head. Pretty much thing about him, from what I recall, is I'm pretty much just going to go over his abilities, but he could transform into a beast, and it's going to cause stress to the rest of the party, but it looks like he's pretty strong. So I'm just going to go through his abilities, saying that he could transform back and forth, and I'm just going to kind of roll over him, because honestly, I haven't used him. So I'm just going to kind of roll over here. It looks like this is his stunned, which he can do in range, but one imagines, I'm assuming he has to be human to do this, but maybe I'm wrong. Beast Bile, he's got himself a dot, which is very good. Then he's got himself Absolution, so he can heal himself, which is always a very helpful ability. He can do some damage here. This looks like another damage. This also looks like a damage that attacks two of them. It looks like it's almost the same as what's it called? The one from the Crusader that does damage there. Which one's Rake? Well, plus 15% damage from skill Rake. So I guess if you keep hitting them, you do more, I guess. Alright, and Rage. It just seems like ability, but I can hit all the way to the third line, which is pretty good, but I'm assuming you have to be a beast for that. And Slam, which is moves him forward one, knocks back the enemy, and gives him a nasty debuff. So I don't know much about the Abomination. This is the one where I'm kind of going in a little blind in this guy, which is good, because it's after playing 100 hours this game, it's good for something to be that I don't know what's going on other than the final dungeon of the place. Looks like he's got the ability to do more damage to buff himself up. He can increase his stress and reduce stress for his party members and his camp skills. And he's got a nice little, there we go, health protection for himself. Okay, so that in a nutshell is the Abomination. To me, it looks kind of like a semi-tanky, conditional-based character that it's going to be interesting to use. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to work, though, so it's going to be a mystery to both of us. Moving on to the Man of Arms. Here's a little palette swap, so I forgot to do that for some of them. Basically, what we're looking at here is he's actually a really cool class, because he's got a lot of different sort of abilities that you could use them in two different ways. You could use them all the way in the back line, all the way back here, and just do nothing but buffs. So over here you can just buff the entire party with dodge and plus speed, which is very nice. You can also just give accuracy to the party. Bam, that's really huge. His big abilities, you could guard ally. You could be all the way in the back line and still do that as well. So you could basically just say, I'm going to use this ability, increase his protection, and that sort of good stuff happens. His main attack, so if he's in the front lines, is Crush, I hit you with mace. Rampart, which is knockback and stun, which is helpful. It also moves him forward one, so if he gets pushed back, he has the ability to do that. Bellow, which is the ability to do very little damage, but you're messing with the enemy's dodge and speed. So he has some stuff that's really hard to hit, like some little dogs or some of the things that are a real pain to hit in the game. That can be helpful to help slow them down and actually catch up to them. The one that's really interesting about him, and one had to get nerfed several times I've noticed, is Retribution. Basically what he does with Retribution is he marks himself, but it activates the riposte stance. Riposte, it's, my French. Anyway, the point is that what it does is that while the attack itself doesn't do that much damage, it makes it so that anytime he's attacked by the enemies, he automatically attacks back. And since this has been upgraded a bit, you can see when it's been upgraded, he's got a better chance to crit and more damage from the regular attack. So basically he gets to do like a normal attack where he basically bashes you with his shield, and he does damage back at you. So there's a lot of positives in that. This is a really powerful ability. It makes a Man-at-Arms very versatile because you can put him in, your first or second row. He's still able to hit people. He still has the ability to choose which sort of buffs you want to bring along for the journey. And he's got a lot of cool stuff. His camping abilities are also really good. These are both the same bonus, one's to himself, one's to somebody else, which is really good. Like, say, put that accuracy, damage, and crit on your Leper, and woo, he's doing pretty good. He's also got tactics and some good stuff there. Overall, the Man-at-Arms is definitely a powerful class, and so far we've kind of all been going over classes that are kind of tanky-ish, and he does that job very well. And some of the artifacts, which I'm not really going to touch on too hard, but you can see that there's even an artifact such as this Guardian Shield that he receives a whole bunch more heals and protection if he's in the final slot. Now, if he's in the final slot, he's not going to be able to do too much offensively, but he's going to be able to buff everybody, and he's going to be able to guard ally and do all that sort of stuff. So you become a tank who's in the very back lines, which is a very interesting sort of way to play him. Alright, so let's move on to one of my favorite classes, the Bounty Hunter. Yeah, he's named Fett. Yeah, what can I say? I'm a little predictable. Here's his swapping around. Bounty Hunters are very cool. They've got basically they have both melee and range skills. Excuse me. I tend to prefer them in a melee type capability because this introduces like the idea of marking your enemies. You mark your target. If that target is marked, when he goes to collect bounty, basically his ability in the first two rows to do stuff, he gets a bonus damage of 90% damage versus the marked target, more if it's a human. Now granted, these abilities have been upgraded a little bit, so it might be different on, say, a lower level bounty hunter doesn't have it upgraded, but the idea is that you pretty much mark them first, and then bam, you hit them in the face with collect bounty. And if you get a nice crit there, I've seen ridiculous numbers on enemies versus with that ability. Also, conditional ability, if you stun them with, say, the flashbang, which also can shuffle the enemies around, they're stunned, and if they're still stunned when you do this, you can also do a nice attack to them that does more damage versus them being stunned. It also has the ability for a melee attack to hit in the third row, which is always very helpful. Even if they're not stunned, you're still doing decent damage to them. Other abilities include Uppercut. Uppercut is one of those things I don't really use too much, but it has its place because you can knock back enemies, you can knock back their front line, and you can stun them to move them back. It's just not one of my favorite abilities, but it's there. The other things he's got is his little hooks and chains. Hooks and change. Come hither, my sweet thing. Is this beautiful ability that at range is that it has a pull too. So pretty much they're in the back line. They're casting magic spells as you were doing something really nasty. What you're going to do to them is you're going to throw your little hook out and go, come over here, or get over here, scorpion style. And you're going to pull them close to you. And that makes it so that the guy who's really comfortable in the back lines is not going to be so comfortable when all of a sudden he's in the first couple lines and you get to beat on him. Very cool ability. Hook and Slice. Hook and Slice is another good bleed, and it's also ranged. It's one of those sort of things where it's kind of nice to be able to have a bleed on the character, although this is one I don't find myself using as much as I thought I would. Interesting, but that's the whole sort of thing. Going through and playing the game this time, I might find whole new reasons to play the character a little differently. As for his camping abilities, he's got the ability to increase the scouting. He's got the ability to less likely chance to be surprised, meaning when you're in combat, whether or not they're going to get a chance opening round on you, if you will. ways to take on huge enemies, increase damage, and this is how we do it. Little buff here. Bounty Hunter, all around a good class, plus mark target, the ability to stun, the ability to kind of set up some more things. He's kind of a great setup, damage dealing style character. He's definitely one of my favorites. Okay, so moving on to the Highwayman. And it's funny because this guy was with me since the very beginning. I tend to, whenever I would play the game, always name my first Highwayman Jacob after my friend, because if he's watching this video, you're a scumbag, Jake. You know it. You know it, right? Anyway, so the Highwayman's an interesting class because he's got the ability to attack you both with his knives and with his guns. His little musket, well, it's not musket, it's a little pistol. But it's like flintlock pistol, you know? Anyway, what's interesting about him is that he's got his standard, I stab ye. I have been stabbed, but he can be all the way in the third row and still attack in melee. In fact, it's kind of almost advisable for him to be in that third row sometimes because he's a little bit more protected that way. But he still has the ability to get himself moved back up with things like Duelist Advance, to where he's able to move himself forward if need be, if you use that. I don't try to use that ability a lot. This is where he prides himself on, though. Excuse me again. Tracking Shot. Tracking Shot is just a little dink, little damage, doesn't do a lot, but bam, it buffs you up quite a bit, so that when you are to take on some of those guys in the back line with, say, your pistol shot, boom, it blows up things. Look at the crit chance in that thing right there. 12%. All right? So he's already got, this is just because he's got like the deadly perk or whatever. His crit chance is already pretty high. You buff it with this in a previous round, so plus another 7, we're at 14, and then you put that together. Then you have like a 25% chance to blow somebody's face off with pistol shot, which is really cool. Also, Grape Shot Blast, very great ability for the first 3 lines. All take damage. It's not a lot of damage, and the crit chance is obviously moved down a lot, but it's a nice area of effect sort of ability that's going to give him some more damage and purpose early game. The other one, I never have used it. Never used it, but it's one of those things that you could do a lot of damage with it, but you have to be at the very front row. So basically, Point Blank Shot seems to have synergy with, say, Duelist Advance. So if you take Duelist Advance and then Point Blank Shots, if you have a party that's comfortable moving around, you're going to have the ability to, pow, hit him right in the face with your flintlock pistol, which, let's face it, that's, probably the only way you're ever going to hit anyone with it. If we're talking real flintlock pistols, those things were notoriously inaccurate. Something about the rifle boring. Anyway, that's history. That doesn't matter here. But Duelist Advance, you see how these two have synergy together. One of the cool things about the Highwaymen, which is basically, they're not rogues, okay, but they're the rogues, is Bandit Sense, less likely to chances to get trapped. Clean Guns. Oh, Clean Guns. Look at that. Increases damage to his range skills and plus 5% crit and range skills. So once again, we got this crit chance, which is already up there, combine it with a little bit of tracking shot, and before you know it, you're going to be critting quite a bit. Scouting chance increase, and Gallows Humor is one of those conditional. It's going to reduce stress, but it might increase stress or might lower stress for people. And if I haven't talked about some of these other camping skills, that's just because everyone gets these 3. Pep Talk, Wound Care, and blah, blah, blah. Alright, so the Highwayman, damage dealer. The bleed is nice to be able to actually do some dot damage. And I've had a good pistol shot just be able to plink away and take out their back line without ever having to take out their front. Pretty versatile class. And definitely one of the early ones you get. Okay, so moving on to, look how many of them I have here, which will give you an indication. I can just go like this to show you the different colors of all of them. Plus, this was poor old Clementine, the Vestal. The Vestal is one of those classes that more than likely you're going to have a few of these because they're the best healers and they've got a lot of good abilities. So, just starting off with their abilities here, they have a Mace Bash. Sure, whatever. If you want to, if they're in the front lines, you can have them hit people. It's not great damage. In fact, it has no bonuses of any kind, but it's kind of like, at least they're not useless if they're up there. That's that sort of thing. Excuse me. Yeah, yawning a lot. Other abilities that require them to be a little bit up towards the front is Illumination. Taken down, it doesn't hit very hard, but increases the torch, but also debuffs enemy for their dodge, which can be helpful. And Hand of Light, which is another ability that debuffs, but makes it, and also does a little bit more damage versus Unholy. It makes it so that their damage goes down and they're going to miss more. But that's not what you got. That's not what you got a Vestal for. What you got a Vestal for is for these 4 abilities, a little trinity. Well, okay, quadrility, whatever they call the alien box set. This is basically what you're here for. Bam! Divine Grace, single target heal. The heals can crit. That was something they introduced as the game went along. Divine Grace is your big single target heal. It is good. It is very good. It is basically someone just got crit in the face for 17 damage. Are you going to be able to replace all the health they lost? No. But you're going to be able to prevent them from dying by giving them a good heal. The other thing that really defines a Vestal is Divine Comfort. This one, it starts off only being at like a 1-to-1, but he gets higher and has the ability to crit as well. But this is the, oh my god, I've got 3 party members who are about to die, or the whole party's kind of wounded. Bam, cast this, heal them up, get them moving again. As for when the Vestal needs to heal herself, but needs to kick a little ass at the same time, Judgment is the ability to strike down from the heavens. The little lightning bolt comes down, it's cool. Heals you for a little bit and does damage to their back line. Not amazing damage, but it can crit pretty decently. And the heal that it helps out, it's your good ability to use. This one, Dazzling Light, is very popular as well, because it's just a plain old stun. Plus it increases your torch. And sometimes increasing your torch can be helpful. Your torch is just the light levels and all that sort of good junk. Okay, so the Vestal's camping ability. Sanctuary, very good. Nighttime ambushes can kind of ruin your day. You've camped in the dungeon, you know, everyone's all stressed out, but you just got everyone healed up or whatever, but you'll get nighttime ambush, and this reduces the chance of it happening. You have to be if religious. I noticed they might have changed that, so you just have to basically just make sure that you're religious still, which probably can happen. Like, say this one's a tippler, just like poor Clementine, but you know, if you're not religious, that might matter, which is, there's a lot of this if religious crap, and you'll find me forgetting a lot about this because it's kind of which one is which. But this will heal. This heals people, reduce stress. This one is also just boom, accuracy and dodge. Good old blessings here. The Vestal, probably the most versatile. It's one of those things where it's hard to talk yourself out of not bringing a Vestal to literally every single time you go out into the dungeon, because they're very powerful in the sense that they're keeping you alive with heals. They have the ability to stun. And they even have the ability to debuff. You just have to keep them in a little bit closer than you might like them to be. Okay, so that is the Vestal. Poor Clementine, we hardly knew her. What can I say? Alright, moving on. Hey, look, this guy's got my name. And he's a Jester. So the Jester. Oh, the Jester. He is a lot of fun. Here's his little swaps here. Everything. Pretty much, the Jester's got the ability. It's got a cool look. Anyway, they change the art on the items all the time as the game's going through early access, so it didn't look like this cool candle before. I'll tell you that much. Anyway, what does the Jester specialize in? Well, that is, he just like you imagine, kind of a jack of all trades. He's got the ability to say, if he's in the mid lines, he's got a bleed that hits multiple people at half damage, but puts bleeds on 2 targets, and he's got a bleed that hits for a little bit less damage, but it's got a really high crit chance. This is a wicked high crit chance. So we've got a high crit chance, and it'll bleed a target out. Sometimes when you want to do dots damage, because they have high protections, this is kind of your bread and butter that does some cool stuff with them. Beyond that, really, that's where you could have a Jester be in like your 3rd line, have them be able to cast Battle Ballad. That's just a buff to the whole party. Speed, accuracy, crit, all good stuff. You could just have them spamming that the whole time and dealing out dots as necessary. Leave them in the 3rd row, and you're good to go. You can also change things up though, which is really cool. With you could have them do, well, Dirk Stab is just moves him forward one, which might help with this, but really it's about solo, finale, and inspiring tune. And I've run a Jester like this a few times. It's a lot of fun. Pretty much the idea is that finale, solo, so they pretty much cast something, they move forward 3, so there's guaranteed if they're in the very back line, meaning they're in the back line and they're just trying to keep stress down by, you know, jamming out on the guitar, playing some cool things on the lute, and making the party feel better, a little less stressed out about things. And then you go, it's time for the solo, okay? So he's shredding up on that lute, and he moves himself all the way forward, giving a negative accuracy buff to the entire enemy party, so they miss more, which is cool. So what do you do when you're in this sort of position? Well, obviously you're up front, and you're not exactly a tanky type. I mean, unless these tights aren't providing much in the way of protection, know what I mean? So, finale. This is it at level 1. It gets better. Finale is that crit chance 15%? Oh, yes, it is. Plus, it does another 50% damage on top of it. And this is level 1 of the ability. Basically, this is their move them all the way back to their starting position in the 4th line here. Excuse me again. And basically, has got a chance to do a whole bunch of damage. So the idea is that you solo to get up there. You're helping your party with stress heals and battle ballads, and you're kind of doing the buffing part of the role. You're debuffing the enemy, and then you're going, bam, I'm going to murder somebody. Problem is, afterwards, he gets this nasty negative debuff, puts him all the way in the back line, but until that debuff goes away, he's going to get hit. And dodge is kind of an important part to their character, because they get kind of owned when they get hit, as you can imagine. So the Jester is a very... it's a fun class. You can play him kind of 2 different ways, and more ways than just that, but those are 2 that stand out. Mockery. This is just straight up reduce stress by... So basically make fun of one person, and then reduce stress by everyone else. It's good. Tiger's Eye. Well, I have the tiger. It's good stuff. Accuracy is always good. Every rose has its thorn, so he starts busting out some Guns N' Roses and reduces stress for everybody. And turn back time. He's probably the best anti-stress character you can have, because like turn back time, a character could be really close to the breaking point. Have this be cast on him, and then do something for like the whole party, and before you know it, they've lost half the stress that they had. Pretty good stuff. So that is the Jester. Interesting class. I recommend anyone who's thinking they want to have their character based upon the Jester, just be prepared for perhaps an untimely death or 2, okay? Because I've had the Jesters, if they're doing some of this cool, you know, guitar solo back and forth stuff, sometimes they can get freaking owned. And it's pretty funny, but you know, if you play them carefully, you can still do alright. Alright, so we're moving on to the Houndmaster. And this guy was named by the computer, because I don't know what Vitalis is. Some Roman name. Ooh, look at this. Changes his color of his dog in this. Houndmaster is the class I've had the least amount of time with, next to none with the Abomination. But they have some interesting sort of abilities. I don't know if they've really gotten the whole feel to the Houndmaster yet, but this is pretty much what they're able to do. Hounds rushed, plus damage if they're marked. Oh, so if you mark them, say with your target whistle, or say a bounty hunter marks them, see the synergies that can kind of come off a party. What happens is that for pretty much anywhere but the very front position, you can send your dog out to attack the enemy, do a whole bunch more damage if it's a beast, and it puts a bleed on them. So it's a very versatile ability, pretty good crit chance. I mean, anything's got to improve crit chance is nice. And it allows them to do a lot of things. And once again, you have to mark the target, it needs a little bit of setup. You want to bleed everybody, you got to bleed out the whole party. Hound's Harry is for you. The dog just goes, bites everyone's ankles, and everyone's bleeding, assuming they can bleed. And that's pretty much kind of the idea behind them. That's kind of the gist of some of the dog abilities. Cry Havoc is if he's in the back line here. It's a chance for a stress heal, but it's only a 65% chance. And I'm trying to remember if I've ever even used this ability, because I'm like, why would I want to do a stress heal that doesn't really work? I think it actually might do it to everybody though, so that might be the bonus to it. I'm not positive in that one for Cry Havoc. Guard Dog. Guard Dog is interesting. Plus 15% dodge. So you make yourself tanky. You make yourself tanky so that way you can take a lot of damage, or because you're going to be dodging. I mean, you're not really tanky. You're more like you're dodging attacks. But if you do get hit, hey, you can lick wounds, so you can self-heal yourself. So kind of a weird kind of tanking option. And the other thing, pretty much the only offensive ability that the Houndmaster himself has versus his pup, is Blackjack, which is a stun, does damage. You gotta be the first couple rows to use it, but it is a nice high percentage stun. And does the job pretty good. I find that in my experience using the Houndmaster is that I like bringing them along when I have another person who's able to mark targets, so that I'm able to take advantage of his dog's attacks to its most effectiveness. I haven't really spent a lot of time using him in the kind of tanking position with healing wounds and using Guard Dog effectively. But that's why there's lots of rooms to do this. So if you're interested in being named after the Houndmaster, you might want to come up with a name for your pup. I'll try to write that down and remember that. Go, Santa's Little Helper. He kind of looks like a really shaggy greyhound. I don't know. Is that a Labrador? All I know is that it's really weird seeing a dog like that being so vicious. In fact, the dogs I was just taking care of recently doing some dog sitting looked kind of like that. Now all of a sudden, probably explains why I got bit. Anyway, moving on. It was an accident. The dog. Don't call the pound. Release the Hound. Yeah. Increase your scouting chance by a whole bunch. Boom. Good stuff. Scouting is good in dungeons. Man's best friend. Reduce stress by 20. He just gives a little hug. Therapy dog. The paw, look at this. You can't see it because a little lock on there, but he puts his little paw. You don't know when they put their little paw on your hand. Oh, it's so nice. It's so sweet. It reduces stress. It's good. Hound's Watch, less likely to be surprised. So the Houndmaster's got similar kind of abilities, camping abilities to a lot of the other ones. But it has its own role to fill, and it's got, all the classes here got a little bit different. I don't have as much experience with the Houndmaster, so I'll be looking for some more interesting strategies on using him effectively. I do like how he's black. Cool. It's cool that you can do that. I don't know if everyone can go that way. So, moving on to Madison, who's totally pumped up. She's a Grave Robber. Grave Robber is a class that I love, yet I don't know if it loves me back. It's a little unrequited love here. Because it's got a lot of great things that you can do with it, but it all depends on how you use them. So, for example, this is another character that kind of excels in this third spot here. Pick to the face, bam. It's just a pure old melee attack. It does good damage, and it's got a good crit chance. You're using a freaking pickaxe for a weapon. It's good stuff. There's Lunge. You need to move yourself forward a couple ones. You have a higher damage mod and a really high crit chance. Hint, hint. You're able to do some good melee damage that way. Oh crap, I'm in the front lines. I can't use Lunge anymore, and I don't want to get hit by these tanky things. Boom, Shadow Fade. You basically give yourself a nice buff to dodge, and you're able to stun somebody in the first two rows. Very effective. So that's kind of the synergy between the two of these abilities to kind of make it so that you're able to boom and then put yourself backwards, and you're still able to do this. So if you're kind of a melee orientated one, this is kind of the way that you go with them. But they also really excel at range damage. Boom, Thrown Danger. Look at this one. +8 accuracy to themselves. Also, it reduces their bleed resist. So if you're having an enemy that's having difficulty bleeding, well, that's going to help. I've never noticed that. It's got a really high crit chance, so 12%. I'm not sure, but I think wasn't that what the other one was at? The gun, I forget. This is upgraded, of course, but it's got a high crit chance. Plus, it's got a self buff, so there's some really cool stuff there. Flashing daggers. Boom. Want to throw a couple daggers at a couple of people in the middle? You sure can. And it's got a decent crit chance. They have the ability to do Blight. Blight is the plague. It's the other. It's the yin or the yang to the bleed damage. It's the other way of basically putting a dot on them. So they have the ability to throw poison darts, and also coincidentally to lower their blight resist. So that's interesting. So they might have some synergies with other characters. who do that sort of thing. So basically, you got some interesting stuff there. Toxic Trickery. Yeah, I'm bleeding and this hurts. I can cure this, plus give myself a nice dodge. I would think that the plus dodge and the speed thing work really well, especially if you're doing kind of a more melee oriented Grave Robber. Grave Robber has one interesting ability in the supply, or in the camping section. Pilfer, produce a supply item. Do you know what it's going to be? Is it going to be holy water? Is it going to be a torch? You don't know. You're just going to pick something from the ether. It's kind of cool. Another scouting ability, Gallows Humor, we've seen before. Snuff Box, remove target disease. Now, diseases are these bad boys here, and I don't know, is anyone suffering from disease, or did I keep these guys disease 3? I think I might have. Diseases are stuff like when I mentioned in this song, the Clementine got syphilis from a pig, which can happen. I'm not sure if it actually comes from the pig, but I've caught syphilis before, yeah, from this. The characters, not me. I'm clean and available, ladies. No, so basically, she could just straight up remove a disease from herself, that is, with the Stuff Box. Kind of a cool ability, gotta admit. It's a very situational ability, but diseases can really wreck your day up. Some of them, like the Red Plague or something, just make your character suck. So I love the Grave Robber. They've got a lot of cool things. You pretty much kind of have to decide which way you're going with them, but you can change them up per mission, which way you want to go. A lot of cool things to be done with them. Grave Robber good, also good with the traps, which a lot of them have that. Some of them are good with traps, some of them aren't. Just something to know for the future. Anyway, we are moving on now to Mark. I named this one Mark Summers, even though the Plague Doctor, which gotta love the whole Plague Doctor thing. I think a lot of people were introduced to this whole look from Assassin's Creed 2, maybe, because that's the sort of beak mask and goggles were what Plague Doctors, who weren't even really doctors, really, but they were what they wore was this cool beak thing. It's so cool looking. It's actually a she underneath there, by the way. So I didn't know that at the time, and that's why I named him Mark Summers. Mark Summers, funny enough, because of the whole, you know, the guy from Double Dare was pretty much like OCD, yet he was dealing with all the kids putting all that slime and all the weird goop all over. Man, iron will that man. Anyway, moving forward, none of this is important. So, what does the Plague Doctor do? Well, they blight people, and they buff people, and they stab people, and all that sort of good stuff. So let's go over the stuff I commonly use. Noxious Blast, 5 points of blight per turn, and you just have to be in the back, you know, not the very front row. And this attacks the frontliners. It's almost not necessary, but it's very, very helpful because there's going to be a lot of frontliner enemies in this game that are just super tanky, and this puts a huge blight on them from the start. Now, this is upgraded. I don't know if it starts out for 5 points per turn. I kind of doubt it does, but it puts on a lot. In fact, I can actually tell you, does it put on a lot? It puts on, yeah, it's a little bit less when it starts off as you upgrade it, but it puts on a blight that's going to be a dot that'll tick down on them. It does a lot of damage. Boom, Plague Grenade. So those back lines, you don't really have a way of dealing with them because their frontliners are too tanky and you can't reach them. Well, Plague Grenade's what's there for. You throw it in the back line, you can blight them and just bleed them off until they die. Very useful ability. I like it a lot. Another one is Blinding Gas. So those guys in the back row are giving you a whole bunch of trouble, the enemies. Well, just stun them. Just stun them and bleed them and blight them. Stun, blight. Have yourself a good old time. Beyond that, Incision. Funny enough, they have a bleed as well for all of your dot purposes. It's a melee ability, pretty decent crit chance, and you can be in the third row to cast it, so that's very helpful as well. Beyond that, Battlefield Medicine is interesting. They introduced this as the early access went on. It cures Blight and Bleed for yourself. Actually, it cures even if you cast this on, say, somebody else who's bleeding and needs a little bit of a heal. You also cure Blight and Bleed on yourself when you do it, if I recall correctly. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So that's pretty useful. It's a small heal. I mean, this is upgraded all the way and heals 2 to 3. Not that great of a heal, but I find that when you get to some of the harder parts of the game, it's nice to have a secondary healer, and this kind of fills that role very nicely. Beyond that, Emboldening Vapors. damage and speed increase. So let's just say the backbone of your party is the Highwayman that does a whole slew of damage. That's the one you want to hit them with. You get this nice little buff, or they're the only one you could hit somebody. This will make it so they do lots of damage. And an interesting one here is Disorientating Blast, which is a shuffle ability, but also clears all corpses. Corpses are something we'll go about at the end, where I ask you guys some questions about the playthrough. Basically, shuffle an enemy, clearing corpses, and there you go. They're pretty much... It's one of those things that's just kind of there. Either you're going to bring it or not. It's interesting. So... that is the Plague Doctor. I like the Plague Doctor. It's had its ups and downs. It's been kind of weak for a while. Now it's decent. It's hard to call it the strongest, but when it comes to blights and it comes to some utility, you're not going to get much better. The camp abilities, the ability to reduce stress and heal. They also have the weird ability. I think what it is like they can heal 50%. 3/4 chance to do that. This one is interesting. Straight up leeches. So someone's got a problem, they got a disease, one of these nasty diseases down here, or a poison, bam, removes it, just like the snuff box or the grave robber. Pretty cool ability. And the cure, remove target disease. Oh, guess they're both the same. Anyway, so the point is that they have the ability to kind of help with your diseases when you're out in the field, because some of those diseases can be really nasty. Okay, so we're moving on to Michonne. I think I named her after, the Walking Dead character. She is the Arbalest, which basically means sniper with a crossbow. Now, what the Arbalest works with is that they're this weird combination of damage dealer and a healer and a little bit of other strange stuff. So, what we got here is Sniper Shot. Bread and butter ability that you want to use for them, and this works if they're marked. So obviously you're going to want them to mark, so you hit them the most you can, so they have the ability to mark targets. Now, if you've seen a theme here as I've been going along here, characters who can mark targets benefit. If there's another character in the party who can also mark targets, meaning they mark the target so they do the damage. Great for removing people. Anything but the frontline person can do a whole bunch of damage. Also, suppressing fire, pew pew pew. You're in the back line. You want to take down their accuracy of the enemies. You want to take down the crit chance of the enemies, which is interesting because I didn't even know there was the ability to do that until I saw this right here. It's basically a way of just keeping them down. The party's taking too much damage. You're able to kind of work this out. We all know what marked target is at this point. Bola. Bola is one of those. There's two enemies in front of me. Or there's one in the very front. I can't hit him. I want to hit both of them. You're able to do half damage, and you have the ability to knock them back one. Can be helpful. It's kind of one of those I use it sometimes I don't. Blind Fire. Blind Fire is a very interesting target. It's basically like throwing your D&D dice down and going, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Because you're going to fire at a random target, and you're going to do a decent amount of damage to them, just a little bit less than normal, but you're also going to buff yourself with speed. So if like you accidentally, or if you get pulled or moved around to where you're in the front lines, you still have something you can do, plus the speed benefit can make it so that you can attack quickly again. Battlefield Bandage. Once again, kind of fulfilling that same role as the Witch Doctor. This is another heal that you can do, kind of a secondary heal to like the Crusader and the Vestal, because it's not the strongest heal, but it does increase the amount of heals received. So the idea is that you bandage them with this, and then by the time the Vestal gets to them, they give a crit heal, and before you know it, somebody goes from the brink of death to near full health. Very powerful kind of combination ability. Plus, if you're going to be in the backline anyway, why not have it? Kind of the way I look at it. And Rallying Flare. Now, this is the one that's interesting. I don't know if I've ever actually cast this. I've had it cast against me when a Arbalest was mind controlled, shall we say. And what it does is that it clears stuns and it clears marked targets. So your party is stunned, your party is having issues, you can clear the stuns, you can clear the marked target, and it gives a little bit more torch. Interesting ability. Situational, yes. Maybe against certain bosses, yeah. So there you go. That's kind of what you got going there. What they have, their camping abilities: Triage, very powerful, very good. Restring Crossbow, just bam, just huge buff, just kind of like the Highwayman's buff. be able to help him out. Marching order. Everyone gets more speed and the chance to remove bleeding. Basically, the ability to do some triage / do some buffs. This is what a lot of the camping abilities are for. Okay, now as I'm looking at this, I just want to real quick check, and if you will excuse the looking around, and you'll see you'll see a little bit behind the scenes. Darkest dungeon. Oh, looks good. A little bit behind the scenes here is going to my other game because I would like to see make sure I didn't miss a class because sometimes you can forget that.
With the cost of this crusade.
This is
It's
him
noble
talking.
and affords you broad tolerance in your choice of means.
Yeah, get used to hearing that sexy voice. Yeah, I did miss somebody. Okay, good. I knew I was gonna miss someone. It's funny because I missed this one because I always miss this one. Hey, look, another Clementine. It's almost like I was getting footage for this. Yeah, she's drinking. Anyway, Donnie, the occultist. And whenever you say occultist, you have to kind of move your fingers together like you're Mr. Burns saying, excellent. So, anyway, the occultist is a very interesting class in the sense that they're debuffers, healers, damage dealers. They're everything. But they're, all in a situational kind of way. So, Sacrificial Stab. Hey, you want to do some damage? Really high crit chance and great against eldritch enemies. I find this ability hits harder than you think it's going to. And you stab somebody, you do some damage. It's nice. Vestal Artillery. Boom. They're in the back lines, kind of like the Plague Doctor's little shots. They're able to rain down their nasty little tentacles and from lore down, something out of Japanese cartoon / Cthulhu or your worst nightmares, depending, or if you're, I don't know, maybe you really like tentacles. Who am I to judge? Basically, it does a whole bunch of damage in the back line. It's a little bit less, but it's a good way of taking out those backliners. Moving on to some of these other ones real quick is that he has to be up close to do this one, but this is interesting because it's got a good chance to stun, good chance to crit, even though it's at half damage, but it removes torchlight and you're able to get a good stun from it. It's interesting. It's just weird having the occultist up front. Also, just like the get over here of the bounty hunter, the occultist is able to pull enemies from range closer to this. Also has the ability to clear enemy corpses. That might be new. I don't know if I've noticed that before. Alright, so moving on to the debuff abilities. Vulnerability Hex. So you mark a target, once again, another class that can mark targets, and you have the ability to reduce their dodge quite a bit. So you have those really annoying enemies that are dodging everything that you try to throw at them. You're able to hit them with the mark, and then before you know it, your bounty hunter is hitting them for a whole slew of damage, or your marksman or your Houndmaster. So you have a lot of abilities to do this here. Also is Weakening Curse. Also, once again, we have the ability to reduce, just straight up reduce the amount of damage something's doing. Something's hitting like a Mack truck, weaken it. So it does less damage until you can deal with it. You got something in the back line. There's some enemies in the back line that their threat is the fact they do a lot of damage, but not necessarily the debuffs they can cause. So this is a way of maybe slowing down that damage that they're pumping out at you until you can reach them. Now, what makes the occultist very interesting, he's also a secondary healer with weird construction. I don't know if it's wired. You guys can tell me. So look at that. Look at that heal. Oh, to 16 damage? What? Or healing, I should say. But it also bleeds. So pretty much it's got a chance to bleed your characters, but you can heal from either nothing to like 16. 16 is obviously the biggest heal you're going to get outside of crit heals and things of that nature. Even with crit heals, it's going to be tough to reach that. So it's a really powerful heal, but you're rolling the dice once again. This is one of those abilities that you'll have somebody on the brink of death, and you'll cast it on them, and you'll be singing hallelujah and saying to the gods, thank you very much. Or you will be very upset because you just put a bleed, healed them for nothing, and you just basically made it so that they bleed out and die. So that's kind of a fun little aspect to them. I like the occultists in theory. It's one of the things I don't really I'm not a huge fan of is that stuff that reduces your torch is tough to use. Plus I don't like having them that close. It's an interesting one. I'd love to hear some more ideas on proper use of the Occultist. If someone has some fun ideas, I'd love to hear it. Okay, their camping skills. Unspeakable Commune. So basically heals, gives you a buff for herself. Dark Strength. Increase your stress, but your one companion goes up 20% more damage. Very nice before a boss fight. Pump up the person you know is going to be your big damage dealer. Reduce Torchlight by a whole bunch, but everyone heals. You know, trade-off. Abandoned Hope. Reduces your stress, but increases everyone else's stress. Kind of a fun ability. So, that's basically it to the Occultists. I find that they're very... I find that they're interesting. Sacrificial Stab is one of those things you're really surprised how much damage it'll do, especially at times. This will their heal is going to make you go, they're amazing. Other times it's going to make you go, oh, I hate this game. So that's basically the gist. Hey, look at this. It's from the song. It's not this time. Little x, capital X, little x, 69. Anyway. And another Clementine. No, how many Clementines are in this game? That was all for the purposes of getting footage. Because I'm deleting these saves when the final version of the game comes out. So anyway, that's the Occultist. I kind of gave out everything. So... I'm 95% sure I got all the classes of it. I think there might even be more classes being released. It's hard to say. The features are going to open up as time goes on. I believe there might be more classes even with the final release of the game that might be coming up. It might be one more class, but there's already so many classes. There's so many classes to deal with, guys. There's a lot of great stuff, and I don't want to linger too long on this here screen just because it looks like like it to look a little bit more basic than the way it starts. Hey, the darkest footage, I wonder what that was used for. But pretty much what I'd like to quick go over as final thoughts.
You will know the tragic extent of my failings.
This is a lot more what the Hamlet looks like when you first show up at the place. So anyway, the spoilers before is just things look nicer as you start doing better stuff in there. Although I've never gone to the Darkest Dungeon. I've never solved the mystery, if you will. Never been to the very peak up there. So I can explain what each one of these things do, but I'll do that as the game goes on. What really I'd like to go over here in this video here is checking out, I believe is going to be gameplay stuff. Now, here is the interesting stuff. This is this is how the game's intended to be played. If you want, you can mess with different sort of things to make the game easier for you, or make it something that's not to your cup of tea. Honestly, however you want to play the game, that's really up to you. I'm planning on leaving everything in, but I want to leave the option for people who are saying, oh god, no, don't do this, don't do this, this is terrible. For example, monsters leave corpses. This caused a lot of backlash in the community as the game was being released in early access, because leaving corpses is something that they'll stand there in their spot after they've died, unless they perish by dots. They'll stay there, and they'll make it so that even though you've killed that big tanky thing up front, you still can't reach the guy in the back because there's a corpse in the field that either you have to destroy with an attack or you have to wait for it to go away with dots and things like that. That's kind of the controversial ones, of whether or not people want to see monsters leaving corpses. I plan on leaving it on. It can be a little bit of a time sink in some of the battles, sure, but for the most part, it's still a strategic element that was kind of meant to be in the game originally, but some people don't like it. Oh god, heroes get stressed, enemies can call reinforcements, take too long to kill them. I haven't actually had them call reinforcements on me. I don't know if I've ever seen that they added that. But the idea is that with your healing characters, you can't just spend the very end of the battle going, okay, I'm healing, everyone cast heal, everyone just wait around, cast heal, and take out the enemy really, really slowly. That's going to cause stress and cause problems. Basically, it's called don't cheese the game. Mortality debuffs. This is something that was introduced, and just getting the footage, because I hadn't played the game in a couple of months until I got the footage for the Clementine video. For this video, I should say. This is, if you get healed off of Death's Door is when you're about to die and go into oblivion. This makes it so that you have stat penalties after that. It's realistic. It's also one of those things that sucks, but if you think about it, you're going to be pretty stressed out if you were just near-death experience, you know? So,
It's one of those things to do. Combat retreats can fail. This is one of those ones that, trust me, I am tempted just to click off, just because, you know, there's gonna be one of those moments that this might be terrible. But pretty much it's just like, you remember when you're trying to run in Final Fantasy, kid. I'm talking to us old school guys here, I guess, too, and you're holding your Super Nintendo controller, hold R, L and R at the same time, or mash them, and your characters are standing in place and running away, and the party failed to escape pops up, and you just want to like shoot, you know, your Super Nintendo console. So that's one of those things. I'm planning on leaving everything in, but if someone's like, oh god, I never want to see that, let me know. And standard enemy crits. So they multiply base damage similar to players. You turn off, they just do max damage. They should be able to hit as hard as they possibly can. I'm trying to play the game as this. Now, what's interesting about this is that Darkest Dungeon is a difficult game. Your favorite character, you're gonna be like, I want to be this, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna do my best not to get people killed. Really, especially now that I'm naming them after commenters and subscribers. But at the same time, people are gonna die, and sometimes they're gonna die because of the standard enemy crits. For example, it's going to just be like, oh, I've done everything right. You got obliterated by like a 38 damage crit, and then afterwards, before I could even act again, you bled out to the damage or something like that. You know, these things are going to happen. I personally think that I want to keep the game as is with everything in there. The one thing that's going to be turned off is tutorials. I'll explain things as they pop up. Tutorials are annoying. And if I miss something crucial because of it. But if you ever need to look up something, say you're playing along, you're playing your own game, I can definitely say that, what is it? Is it this one here? Yeah. This glossary here can give you a bunch of different, information that you need to do. So anyway, I haven't gone into any of the battles or shown any of that sort of stuff yet. That's what the first actual video is going to be for. That'll be coming up on January 19th. That is coming up very soon. As soon as it's released, I'm making videos for it because I've been anxious for this one for a long time to be coming out of early access. The developers, Red Hook Studios, have done a great job with it as they've gone on. And I also think they've had a very uphill battle when it came to early access, because there's some people that really didn't like the direction the game was taken with the changes in early access. But that's the road that you take for early access, is sometimes people are going to have this or that. I'll have plenty of time to talk about this as the game goes on. But long story short, guys, this game's art is beautiful. The game has a wonderful feel to it, and please join me on this journey to see if we can finally reach the Darkest Dungeon and complete the game. I've never completed the game. I've gotten characters up to bazoom, whatever crazy high levels, but I've never been able to complete the game because the game hadn't been bloody finished yet. So I really would like to finish this one, and I'm hoping that you guys will be with me to do it. So basically in the comments, leave what class you're interested in playing as. It's kind of going to be kind of a first come first serve basis. If you have a sort of color palette that you like or whatever, just let me know as the videos go on. Or you can always just list, like, you know, like palette 1, 2, 3, you know, 4, something like that, if you really, you know, it matters to you and that sort of thing. And also I will say that I'm going to try to play the game the best of my abilities. But hey, if I'm using your Crusader, you know, differently, you want him to be more about healing people and actually using their heals, and maybe, you know, not always being using certain things or whatever, you know, let me know, and I'll try to you know, it's a let's play, we're all playing this together in that sense. So tell me what you'd like to have changed, and I'll try to my best to accommodate fools. Now if you're just giving me advice that you want me to, you know, play people terribly, well, we'll have to see about that. But anyway, I really hope you guys will join me on this fun journey. The table of contents hopefully is going to work, and everyone will be able to get to where they need to go. And I'm really looking forward to this one. So come along to the Darkest Dungeon with me, Zial. I guarantee we'll have some fun, we'll have some laughs, and we'll definitely all get a chance to scream no as we go to the graveyard to see all the people. Think about this. One day, your name could be here. Yep. All right, with that morbid thought, everyone have a great day, and I'll see you January 19th for more. Take care, y'all.